Why betrayal is the ultimate spiritual test for any chosen one. Have you ever felt the sting of betrayal so deeply that it didn't just break your heart, it shattered your sense of reality? That moment when someone you trusted, someone you loved, someone you walked with on the sacred path of life turned their back on you. It feels like the universe itself has turned cold. But what if I told you that betrayal is not just a wound, it's a doorway? A mysterious, painful initiation that only the chosen ones go through. Not because they're weak, but precisely because they are strong enough to survive what others cannot. You see, betrayal isn't just about people. It's about your soul. It's a divine mirror reflecting the cracks in your own identity, your attachments, your illusions. And when it strikes, it asks a terrifying question: who are you without them? I've been there. We all have, haven't we? Maybe it was a friend who turned jealous, a lover who whispered promises under the stars, then disappeared into the shadows, a mentor who praised us in public and slandered us in private. Or maybe it was a parent who chose their own pain over your presence. Whatever form it took, betrayal cuts through the veil we've built around our hearts. It exposes the raw, unfiltered truth of our humanity. And it hurts. God, it hurts. But what if we stopped seeing betrayal as an ending and started seeing it as an initiation? What if this pain was not here to destroy us, but to awaken us?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
The chosen ones, those who carry an ancient light inside them, often hidden even from themselves, are always tested through betrayal. Why? Because betrayal is the only thing that can truly strip away the ego. It's the only thing that leaves us naked enough to see who we really are. When you are betrayed, something dies inside you. But what if that something was never meant to live? What if betrayal is the sacred fire that burns away the false self? We live in a world where loyalty is a currency, but truth is rare. People wear masks so skillfully, they forget they're even wearing one. And when you are chosen, when your soul is born to walk a higher path, you will attract two kinds of people: those who see your light and want to protect it, and those who see your light and want to steal it. Here's the twist: both are necessary. The protectors show you love, but the betrayers show you truth. And often it's the betrayer who wakes you up to your own power. Do you really know how powerful you are until you've been abandoned by everyone and still found the strength to rise? The chosen ones are not made in comfort. They are forged in silence, in solitude, in the unbearable space where they realize, everyone I thought I needed is gone. And yet, I'm still here. That moment is a spiritual rebirth. It's when your identity is no longer built on who you are to others, but who you are when there's no one else left. I remember a time when someone I loved deeply turned on me. Not just with words, but with actions so calculated that I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the realization that I had handed them the sword, and they had used it without hesitation. I spiraled. I doubted everything: my worth, my path, even my purpose. But then, in the darkest moment of that night, something inside whispered, "Now you're ready." Ready for what? I didn't know, but I felt it. I was being emptied, not to be punished, but to be prepared. Prepared for something greater than I could imagine. You see, betrayal is the ultimate spiritual test because it demands that we transcend our own story. It forces us to choose between bitterness and transcendence. And that choice defines everything that comes next. When you are betrayed, your first reaction may be vengeance. That's natural, it's human, but the chosen ones are called to something higher. We are called to alchemy, to turn that pain into power, to transmute that poison into purpose. Ask yourself, what if the betrayal wasn't against you, but for you? What if it was the only way to reroute you back to your destiny? What if the very person who betrayed you was a soul contracted by the universe to break your heart, so you could remember it was never theirs to begin with? This is where the spiritual journey deepens, because you start to realize that true power isn't about control, it's about surrender. It's about letting go of the narrative that says you are a victim and stepping into the truth that says you are a creator. The betrayal didn't happen to you. It happened for you, to wake you up, to shake you out of your illusions, to strip you down to the bone so the divine could rebuild you from the inside out. You were never meant to stay who you were before the betrayal. That version of you was too small for the mission you were born to fulfill. And here's the hardest part sometimes. The ones who betray us are the ones we love the most. That's why it hurts so deeply, because love is the doorway through which betrayal walks in. But love is also the key to rising above it. Not love for them necessarily, but love for yourself, love for your soul, love for the sacred journey you are on. Because once you see betrayal as a spiritual test, you stop asking, why did they do this to me? And you start asking, what is my soul learning from this? That question changes everything. It takes you out of the spiral of blame and puts you back on the path of power. Power not as domination, but as alignment. Of the power to heal, to forgive, to rise, to build again, stronger this time, wiser, cleaner. You stop carrying the weight of what they did, and you start carrying the wisdom of what you became because of it. So I ask you, what would it look like if you stopped running from your betrayal and started walking through it like a sacred temple? What if you lit a candle in that temple, sat in the center of your pain, and asked it what it came to teach you? You might cry, you might scream, you might break. But eventually you'll hear the answer, and it will change you forever. Forged by fire, how the soul transcends the wound of betrayal. There is a moment quiet, almost imperceptible, when the soul begins to shift. It doesn't come with thunder or fury. It comes in stillness after the storm, after the betrayal has burned through everything you thought was real. It's in that silence, when you've cried all your tears, when your voice has cracked from screaming into the void, that something sacred stirs. It's the soul awakening. And this awakening doesn't scream out, "I'm healed." It whispers, "I'm still here." That whisper is where transcendence begins. You see, betrayal is not just an emotional wound. It is a spiritual crucible. It is the fire we are thrown into to burn off everything that is not us. The lies we believed, the roles we played, the masks we wore, the illusions we clung to. All of it must go. And the fire of betrayal does not negotiate, but it incinerates. But what remains if you allow yourself to endure that fire is real. It is the raw, unfiltered essence of your being. How many times have we tried to bypass pain, to distract ourselves with pleasure, with busyness, with false forgiveness? But transcendence doesn't come from bypassing. It comes from integration. You have to walk through the fire, not around it, not over it, through it. And that journey, no one can take it for you. Not your friends, not your guru, not even your future self. You are the only one who can hold your heart as it breaks and say, "It's okay." And you were meant to break so you could become. Real transcendence doesn't happen in temples or retreats. It happens in the middle of the night when you are curled up in a ball, wondering why they did it. It happens when you're staring at the ceiling, asking the universe, "How could they betray me like this?" And the answer doesn't come in words, it comes in energy, in presence, in the realization that your pain is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of your transformation. Let me ask you something deeply uncomfortable. What parts of you needed to die for your soul to finally live? It's a terrifying question, but it's the one that betrayal forces us to answer. Because let's be honest, some of us were living half-truths. We were trusting people who didn't deserve our loyalty. We were shrinking ourselves to keep the peace. We were avoiding our own greatness because we were afraid of being alone. Betrayal doesn't just reveal who they are, it reveals who you were pretending to be. And that's the real spiritual breakthrough. When you stop trying to fix them and you start freeing yourself. When you stop trying to get answers and you start asking better questions. Not why did they hurt me, but what was I refusing to see? Not how could they do this, but what part of me allowed it? These are not questions of blame. They are questions of awakening. They are the questions that ignite the soul's fire and turn you from wounded into warrior, from victim into vessel. When we transcend the wound of betrayal, we don't forget what happened, we reinterpret it. We stop seeing it as a failure and start seeing it as a sacred rite of passage. Every great spiritual teacher, every mystic, every light bearer in history has been betrayed. But Jesus was betrayed by Judas. Buddha was abandoned by his family. Even the prophets were stoned by their own people. Why? Because betrayal is the final gateway before the soul steps into its divine assignment. It is the universe's way of asking, will you still love, even after this? Will you still create, still teach, still serve, even with a scarred heart? The truth is, the soul doesn't grow through perfection. It grows through rupture, through loss, through the places we thought would destroy us, but instead revealed our divine resilience. And the deeper the betrayal, the deeper the capacity for transcendence. That is the paradox of pain. It breaks you down only to show you what cannot be broken. So here's the real challenge. Can you bless the ones who betrayed you? Not for their sake, but for yours. Can you let their absence become the silence in which your soul speaks? Can you let the pain carve space inside you for more light, more wisdom, more love than you ever thought possible? Because when you do, you are no longer just a survivor. You are alchemical. You are transformed. You don't rise from betrayal by pretending it didn't hurt. You rise by turning the ashes into gold, the scar into scripture, the heartbreak into a hymn. And when you do, your presence carries a different frequency. People feel it. They don't know what you've been through, but they feel the depth in your voice, the stillness in your eyes. You've been to the pit and back, and you brought back fire. With the divine setup, why your betrayal was never a mistake. What if I told you that everything in your life, every heartbreak, every rejection, every betrayal was part of a divine orchestration, not to punish you, but to prepare you? That the wound you keep trying to hide was actually placed there with precision, like a keyhole carved into your soul, waiting for the right key to unlock your higher self. What if betrayal wasn't an accident, but a sacred appointment with your destiny? When we look back on our lives, we often try to rearrange the narrative. If only I hadn't trusted them. If only I had seen the signs. If only I had walked away sooner. But the truth is, you weren't supposed to walk away sooner. You were supposed to stay, to feel it all, to let the betrayal unfold exactly the way it did. Because in that moment when your heart cracked open, when the truth you didn't want finally revealed itself, something ancient inside you awakened. You see, the universe doesn't waste pain, but it uses it. It crafts it. It tailors it to fit the exact shape of your soul's evolution. And betrayal, it's one of the sharpest tools in the divine toolkit. It's meant to cut deep, not to kill you, but to carve you into someone new, someone truer, someone who doesn't just know their worth, but embodies it. Think about it. If they hadn't betrayed you, would you have left? Would you have questioned your patterns? Would you have gone deeper into your own healing? Or would you have continued sleepwalking through a life that wasn't aligned with your truth? Sometimes, the betrayal is the only thing strong enough to shake you awake. You didn't lose them. You were redirected back to yourself. And here's the wildest part. The betrayer was playing their role perfectly. They were a necessary actor in your awakening. Without them, you wouldn't have cracked open. Without them, the illusion might have lasted longer. But that doesn't mean what they did was right. It doesn't excuse the pain, but it does mean it was sacred. It means it was allowed by the universe, by your higher self, by the very intelligence that governs every breath you take. What if your soul chose this before you were even born? What if you knew you would forget your light, and the betrayal was the plan all along to help you remember? That changes everything. Suddenly, you're not a victim of what happened. You're the orchestrator of your own evolution. You're not just healing from betrayal, you're transforming through it. And that's the real secret. The chosen ones are not chosen because they're better. They're chosen because they're willing to carry more. More pain, yes, but also more power, more truth, more love. The betrayal wasn't the end. It was the initiation, the beginning of your descent into the underworld of your own psyche, where all your shadows live. And only by going there, by facing them, forgiving them, integrating them, can you rise into your full, untouchable self. You were never meant to stay soft and naive forever. The betrayal hardened you, yes, but not in a bitter way. It refined you. It gave you discernment. It taught you how to love with boundaries, how to give without losing, how to see clearly without needing to label someone good or bad. You stopped romanticizing red flags, but you stopped begging for crumbs. You stopped needing others to validate what your soul already knew. So let's flip the script. Instead of asking, why did they betray me? Ask, what did the betrayal awaken in me? What strength did it call forth? What truth did it highlight? What version of you did it kill? And what version of you was born in its place? Because the moment you can see it like that, you've stepped into spiritual maturity. You've stopped resisting the setup and started trusting the unfolding. And maybe, just maybe, you've begun to understand that betrayal wasn't a detour, but it was the path. You were never off track. You were never abandoned by the divine. You were being carved, refined, and realigned. You were being stripped of anything that couldn't walk with you into your future. And that means the betrayal didn't delay your destiny. It delivered it, not in the way you expected, but in the way your soul required. So the next time your heart aches is at the thought of what they did, take a breath. Place your hand on your chest and remind yourself, this was not a mistake. This was a setup, a sacred one. and I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. From scar to sword, turning betrayal into your spiritual weapon. There comes a moment when you stop running from the pain and you start using it. Not as armor to block love, not as a wall to keep others out, but as a tool sharp, sacred, and forged in the fire of your own becoming. That's the final alchemy of betrayal, when the wound no longer defines you, but empowers you. When the scar becomes a sword. We often think our scars are signs of weakness, things to hide. But what if they're spiritual credentials, proof that you've been through a battlefield most people never survive? That you've walked through the fire, not just once, but many times, and instead of turning back, you kept going. You didn't just endure the betrayal, you extracted wisdom from it. You didn't just cry, you listened. You didn't just collapse, you rose. And that rising, that's the weapon. Not in a violent way, not to hurt others, but as a symbol of your unshakable truth. When you wield your scar as a sword, it means you've reclaimed your voice. You've stopped apologizing for your pain. You've stopped minimizing what you went through. You now speak, act, and move from a place of deep embodiment. And that kind of presence, it transforms everything around you. You become a mirror. Not the kind that flatters, but the kind that reveals. People feel your energy and instinctively know they can't play small around you. They can't lie to themselves around you. Because you've faced your own shadow so completely, you now hold space for truth, raw, inconvenient, liberating truth. That is the spiritual weapon. That is your power. And here's the secret most don't realize. The ones who betray you often sense your power before you do. That's why they tried to break you. It wasn't personal, it was energetic. They saw something in you they couldn't understand, couldn't control, couldn't hold. And instead of rising with you, they tried to pull you down. But they couldn't, because your soul had already decided, this pain will not bury me. It will build me. Now, you get to walk the earth differently, not with bitterness, but with clarity, not with vengeance, but with vision. You've learned how to protect your peace without closing your heart. You've learned how to forgive without forgetting the lesson. You've learned how to trust again, but this time, not blindly. You trust your intuition. You trust your discernment. You trust yourself. You are no longer who you were before the betrayal, and that version of you served its purpose. It loved, it hoped, it believed, and even though it was broken, it was never wasted. And that part of you was the seed. This version of you, the one standing tall after the fall, is the flower. And your scar, it's the proof that something once tried to bury you, but you bloomed anyway. So I ask you now, with all sincerity, what will you do with your scar? Will you hide it? Or will you raise it like a banner, like a sword, like a sword, like a testament to the divine fire that forged you? Because the world doesn't need more perfect people. It needs more real ones, more brave ones, more scarred and still standing ones. And you, yes, you are now among them. You are not broken. You are not less. You are chosen. And your scar is your sword. Wield it with love. Wield it with grace. Wield it and walk. Because the path ahead is yours now. And no one, no betrayal, no shadow can take it from you again.